Hi, it's Ted Koren, Dr. Ted Koren, developer of Koren-specific technique. And yes, I have my Mexican hat on. I tried to do this yesterday and it didn't work. Hopefully we'll stay connected. The lighting is much better because it's raining, so I don't have the harsh sunlight. Anyway, the hat is, it's not a Mexican holiday. Actually, it's a Jewish holiday, but you're supposed to dress up weird. So it's Purim. And it's a great holiday, and it's all about freedom and fighting and all that cool stuff. And you're supposed to get drunk on Purim, believe it or not. Anyhow, we went last night to shul, and today there's a party. I don't know if we're going to it. But enough of this. Let me see. Here it is. Here's my hat. So this is about pain. Pain is an incredible motivator. Most people go to doctors because of pain or discomfort or disease, that causes pain. And I discovered KST based on pain. I was in an accident, had a bit of a whiplash and a concussion, and I was in a lot of pain all over my body. I had sciatica, couldn't walk more than 10 feet at a time some days. I had upper extremity damage, so I had like carpal tunnel kind of symptoms, pain in the fingers, wrists, elbows, shoulders, neck, back, and head. I was a mess. So a lot of time, and I searched all over. I know how pain is a motivator. One of the big problems I have with a lot of doctors in our profession is that they are pain-centered. That's the only reason why. The people should go to a chiropractor, and they'll see the signs. It's chiropractor, pain control clinic, pain control center, back pain clinic, neck pain, back and neck pain. Well, they really double their income, right? So that's okay. I mean, it's a motivator. I got into discovering this because of pain. I suffered for 10 long years, neck, back, shoulder, hip, leg, all kinds of pains. And I went to between 40 and 50 different doctors, physical therapists, and chiropractors, mostly physical therapists, MDs, osteopaths, body workers of all kinds, acupuncture, craniosacral, name it, I went to it, and I had almost every technique on me done, and I was still absolutely miserable and horrible. And using KST, when I discovered it, I was out of pain after 10 years in about 5 days. And my wife, Beth, had migraines for 12 years and one tap, and she hasn't had migraines since. It's over 10 years, 12 years now, actually. It's the anniversary, no more migraines. And then I started experimenting with this work, working on the worst patients in the world that were, in my opinion, chiropractors that nobody could help, just like me. I figured if I can get them better, then I had something. So. But first I started experimenting on myself, because after traveling around the country, spending a fortune for 10 long years in constant pain, I was desperate, absolutely desperate. And one day the person introduced me to, here it is, this instrument, an arthrostim. It's an adjusting instrument. There are many kinds out there. You could use anything, even your fingers. I like this the best, actually. But there's all kinds of instruments out there. And I discovered that if I combined a few concepts from a few chiropractic techniques, I would be able to find out if there was a part of my body that was locked up, jammed, subluxated, in pain, under stress. And I'd know the direction it was under. And I was desperate. So this is what I did. Here's the spine. Okay, there's the head, neck, mid-back or thoracic area, and lower back. All right, there's your hips. So it's a very quick anatomy lesson. I discovered something that doctors had missed for 10 years. I mean, they were dancing around the spot, and I know they knew there was a problem there, but they didn't know exactly what it was and how to repair it or how to release it. And this is what I found. And I was a little shocked. But one of the vertebrae was twisted to the right and one was twisted to the left, the one below it. That was it. I call it counter rotation. The vertebrae are rotated in opposite directions. A lot of chiropractors do manual adjusting, cracking, twisting. We call it diversified because it sounds, but I had lots of that and it didn't make a bit of difference. Not a bit of difference. And I had doctors doing it on me for 10 years, as well as all the other techniques. Upper cervical work, I love it. Name the technique, I had it done on me, it was a failure. Every one of them. They tried. I had a little relief some days, but that went away. So just look at the spinous process. One spinous process is to the right, one spinous process goes to the left. See, sort of like, I need another camera, that's what I need. So they went out. Anyway, it was causing nerve impingement. I took my instrument after I figured out where it was out and which direction, and I tapped on one side and the one below it on the opposite, in the opposite direction. That was pretty much it. And 5 days later, the pain had totally gone into 10 years. I had sciatica for many years. Actually, by the time I discovered this work, I'd had it off and on for like 30 years, sciatica. Man, I can understand why people have surgery when they have sciatica. It was intense. It wasn't constant, but after the accident, it got really bad. And oh, Lord, some days I couldn't walk more than a few feet. I'd have to sit, could not move until the pain eased up, and then I'd get up and walk again. My wife remembers that. I remember it, of course, but the kids don't. They were young. I guess they don't think that way like we adults do when a parent is in pain. And I tried not to be too obvious about it. But what happened with me, L3 and L4 were counter-rotated. These lumbars are hard to move, but one was going left, one was going right. That's all it was. Diversified low back. I had stopped getting low back adjustments, diversified, or twisting, cracking, lumbar rolls, $1 million rolls, whatever, because I was worse afterwards. So I would tap one side, tap the other side. Gone. 30 years. Now it took a little while, partially because a lot of SI problems, sacroiliac, the pubic bone is out of place. Sorry about the phone. Let me get rid of that. There we go. Hey, the pubic bone is usually low on the side of sacroiliac pain. So I just tapped, actually above the pubic. Don't tap on the pubic. Oh, here we go. I'm back. So the pubic bone was inferior, and that's how I tapped it up. And that pretty much is it. And I have been demonstrating this for years for chiropractors who too often are not able, let me lower that. And it's still too loud. All right, it'll stop in a moment. A lot of chiropractors have no idea that the counter-rotation can cause such trouble. They're not getting it with diversified, with the cracking and twisting. They need to be real specific. And it might be in different positions. For example, a lot of my problems were when I was sitting as well as standing. And that goes back to the posture subluxation. Subluxations are posture specific or state specific. If a person is corrected in one posture, they should be checked in another posture. And I'll be teaching this more in more detail, but it's pretty basic. It's really pretty simple. We have a KST home study program, by the way. If you're interested in that, just go on our website or give us a call. Excuse me. Our website is korenspecifictechnique.com. And check it out. Call us. You can learn this work on a home study or a live seminar. I prefer actually both. I prefer if a person gets the home study and gets comfortable and familiar with all the concepts and ideas, and then goes on the live seminar. They're like, it's the difference between hitting the ground and hitting the ground running. So anyway, you can check every part of the spine to see if it's got this counter rotation. And sometimes counter rotation occurs. There's two of them. I remember I had one guy at a seminar, T1, T2, T3, T4. All four were counter-rotated. And I worked on him on stage. It takes a few seconds to correct, And like I said, no laying down. It was all standing, no twisting or cracking, very little force. And after it was corrected, he commented, sort of like got really, say, for a second. And then he commented, that he had a birth trauma experience. In other words, he actually had a flashback to his birth. Stuff's pretty powerful. And a lot of times the transition areas have counter rotation. And that's where you get pain, because the nerves are actually impinged. These little rubber things, these orange things, supposed to represent nerves coming through the vertebra, the intervertebral foramina. But it's common when you have counter rotation, you get pain. In addition to the pain in the neck, of course, it can be in the arms. Carpal tunnel, a lot of times carpal tunnel is counter rotation. And to properly correct it or adjust it, you must address both vertebra distortions from one side and the other. Is it only contacting the spinous process? No. Sometimes the bodies are involved. Sometimes the whole segment is off. Sometimes you have to correct the disc. Not many people know it, but you can actually work on discs here. This thing here, this red thing, is supposed to be a bulging herniated disc. You can actually adjust discs directly. And I've done it. I had disc issues in addition to the pubic bone being out and the vertebra being out. Anyone with sciatica pain, anyone with low back pain, anyone with disc problems, get KST care, because many chiropractors, I remember I was worse after a lot of these lumbar rolls and manipulations. I was worse. I was in a lot of pain. I worked on myself. You can actually get this just to work on yourself. So, and that's why, oops, oh, now we're back. This disconnection is driving me nuts. Okay, we're back. So you can work on yourself. That's one of the best parts of this, because after 40 to 50 doctors, I worked on myself, and you can also. That alone is worth the price of admission. It said, okay, we're reconnected again. Why it's happening, I don't know. Maybe it's the rain. Anyway, I might move this to next to the router next time I do this, which will be next Wednesday at 1 o'clock. So you can check and correct yourself. I remember when I was playing around with this, and I was playing around, I didn't know what I was doing. I actually would check myself and correct one side and then the one below it. And I was doing this also with my low back. The transition areas are the ones that have the most counter rotation, not only, but very common. So you'll have T1 and T2, L4 and L5 usually, sometimes L5 and S1. Remember, this is what it is. This is what it is. And it can be when you're standing, sitting. Very rare you find them when a person's laying down, occasionally, but mostly standing or sitting. Sometimes when they're bending or moving, you'll find counter rotation. You have that flexibility to put a person in the posture of subluxation, and that's where you'll find the deeper damage. Because people ask me, what is this stuff I'm doing about? I say it's very simple. We find what everybody else misses. And I'm talking only now about some structural stuff. There could be toxicity, dental issues, gut problems, heavy metals. It could be emotional work, geopathic stress. You can ask pretty much about anything. And with KST, I really wanted to be a blank slate and not know nothing. My attitude was, I want to just find out what is the body telling me. And it was rather interesting because I would accidentally, I didn't know it, but later on I was told I found acupuncture points. I didn't know. The body says, tap here. And after a while, these points were coming up over and over again. And at one seminar that we had an acupuncturist, the guy said, hey, you're on GB 30 or urinary bladder 10 or something like that. And I realized that I was backing into acupuncture and Qigong and other healing arts. Why? Because we got one body. The body doesn't know from different professions. The body just knows it wants to get better and will lead you, whichever way it can, to heal. So this is really, KST is really a way of exploring. That's why I tell people that a lot of times I learn more than my students, more than the people I've taught KST to. They'll come back to me and show me things they found. And it's fascinating. And it's frustrating because not that I'm learning from people, but the frustrating part is everyone is so unique and different. They all have the same symptoms. The 10th one maybe, or the 100th one may not. You have to dig deep and explore. We learn from our patients, and the most frustrating patients have the most to teach us. It's just a shame it's so frustrating sometimes, but I am very grateful to the patients that hung in there while I kept asking and asking and asking, visit after visit, till I figured out what was the problem. And a lot of times people are like onions or artichokes. They have layers, right? You release one layer and a different layer and then a different one and a different one, and eventually everything releases. Healing sometimes does take time. I want everyone to get better in one visit. That's my goal always. Doesn't always happen. You have to look at what's causing things. And when things don't totally release right away, you have to keep asking, is there deeper damage? Is there old scar tissue? Is there old neurological damage that needs more corrections? When my wife Beth's migraines disappeared, it was a cranial bone that needed tapping. She had lots of chiropractic care, but nobody corrected her sphenoid, and it was jammed. One tap on the sphenoid, totally released. So you have to look at the whole person. We talk about looking at the whole body. Yeah, don't let any part prevent you, lock you in. We talk about the subluxation, but I never use the word vertebral subluxation, because to me, the subluxation is much more important than the vertebra. You can have a subluxation by a bad thought. You can have a subluxation in the cranials. You can have a subluxation in a facial bone. Person's nose is out of joint. I found areas that chiropractors were never taught to correct can be important. So chiropractors are not taught about the hyoid bone or the sternum or the xiphoid, the manubrium. I wasn't taught any of that stuff, and yet we've had incredible responses, healings from people that have had problems for decades. Gone to loads of chiropractors, still in pain, still suffering, when we find a sternum or a hyoid. So correct the subluxation is wherever there's a blockage. It could be physical, any part of the body. It could be, and I like to use the word subluxation, but to me,